Hello, welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, on a somewhat rainy Friday in the state of Maine. Our weather pattern here in the Northeast, at least in Maine, it's been raining off and on for over a week. A low pressure system that apparently is saving us from being infused with all the smoke out of Canada from wildfires, I guess. So I don't watch the news, but this is what I learn when I go online and talk to people. So while it may rain every time I step out the door, I look out and the driveway's starting to dry, so I go outside to try to do something and I get rained on. But such is life. Today, I'm going to work on this monster right here. But before I do, we're going to cover a few loose ends. In the last video, there was a Chevy cased Turbo 400 here with a piece missing out of the bell housing, and I have the broken piece, but that transmission was pressure washed before it was brought to me, which is a nice idea, appreciate it, but unfortunately, there was larger pockets of water infusion. The pump itself was stuck on the input shaft, and there's pockets of water that set. I mean, I could probably save the drum. This one's only got a little bit. The lower unit had areas starting to rust, not that bad, but it is what it is. So I stripped that transmission, and most of that's sitting in front of me. The rest is sitting, I got it in the parts washer right now because it won't rust any further with that parts solvent on it. And my goal was to build that black transmission that's sitting on the yellow cart behind me. So I took the other pressure wash transmission that I knew had a welded case, still a Chevy case, and took that apart, thus clustering my bench even more. And most of that was pretty good, so using the combination of those two plus a beautiful case that I was saving, I've been buying 8-bolt cases from a guy out in the Midwest a couple a month whenever he has them available. The first one I bought a couple years ago, he left the bell housing on it. It's a 1981 TH400 case. I looked up the code, and number 39 mold, which was an 8-bolt case. However, the number 7, I call that number 7 right there because you've always got the 6, and then sometimes 7 and sometimes 8's not even there. So this is my own numbering system, but when I say 7, I mean that one. 8, I mean that one. So this number 39 mold case had number 8 drilled and tapped. Number 7 was just a boss. So that beautiful case I was saving for all this time could have been an 8-bolt case, but it only got a 6-bolt pump. One of the indications that it was a 475, other than I was able to actually look up the code, it's one of the few years that I actually have a direct listing for. The cool lines, and I can't say it's exclusive on a TH475, but enough to know that I know they exist, is the TH475 uses a 3/8 tube cool line instead of 5/16, so it's a unique fitting. It's bigger, obviously, to take the 3/8, what would be fuel line most of the time. In this case, on that chassis that the 475 was in, had 3/8 cool lines, so that's pretty cool. So this transmission I did a few years ago, probably 4 now. It has about 100 runs on it. It was behind a 4.6 Ford modular motor, I guess. I'm not a Ford guy, but I know a little bit. And it works just fine. He'd like to upgrade it. He's now put the Godzilla motor in, which apparently is the same bell housing. And we're going to add, there's an FTI intermediate shaft. And I believe this is a Transmission Specialties, i.e. JEGS forward drum with the improved alloy input. Interesting to note, they neck it down right here where the outer stator tube bushing would be. So if you didn't remove the bushing from the end of the pump, oil would probably still flow. However, I'm going to take it out anyway. And they use a stock drum, add a much bigger spline. It's got an M on it, so you can assume it's 300M. And he brought me an aluminum pan too, which actually saves me from cleaning the old one. I guess I'll clean it eventually, but I actually, have found that while building transmissions, I enjoy taking new pieces out of the box much more than scraping and cleaning and painting. This one should be, take it apart, I got to go all the way down to the lower unit to change the intermediate shaft, or sometimes called the main shaft. So I'll get a good look at everything. It is rare in my world, and I'm not bragging, it's just the way it works so far, that this is the first one I get to tear back into with a number of runs on it and see how it's faring. I don't remember everything I put in it, but I'm sure I put all the good stuff in it. So I'm going to bust it apart and we'll take a look at it. This is one of the ones I probably used sealer on the bell housing. I probably didn't use the gasket like I do now. It didn't leak. Seems to be all dry. He does run a dump valve on it. And I did restrict the pump on this one. He monitors converted charge pressure. He said it's only around 50, but eventually did hurt the thrust in his engine, the 4.6. Not sure if it's related, but in this case, he does monitor the converted charge channel, and it's only 50 or so most of the time, and it drops off with the dump open. So I don't think, in this case, the transmission is the cause of the thrust problem, but we'll check it all out anyway. Again, I'm excited to actually see how things are wearing in there. So about 4 years, about 100 rounds, he said, off and on. And he is religious about changing the fluid, he told me. So super nice guy, also named Sean. And let's just get it apart and see what it looks like. All right, so far so good. He does run a catch tank, if you will. Always a good idea. I'll have to do some retrofitting from the steel pan to the aluminum pan to get that back on there, and his shift linkage as well. He might have to monkey around with that. But inside the transmission, nice and clean. The pan has some light gray, and I always glue a magnet in the bottom. You can see it's caught a lot of metal. We're going to see the entire contents of the transmission. Most likely, that is from the converter. When the transmission is making metal, there's no way to hide it. Typically, debris in the pan will be from new cooler lines that nobody cleaned out. When you assemble an AN line, you need to clean it out, both directions, with some type of cleaning solvent and air, both directions, or you'll get that black stuff. The actual gray stuff is probably clutch material, totally normal. I mean, there's no pockets of anything, there's no black dripping around. In 100 runs, I'd be pretty happy with that. So, and I am happy with that. If it was junk, I'd tell you. You know that. If you've watched my 400 plus videos, if there's something wrong, I'm going to tell you what's in front of me. I'm not looking to hurt anybody's feelings, including my own, but I'm going to tell you the truth. So far, so good. I would be completely happy with that. When I installed the bell housing, I used the supplied hardware that JW gives you, Ultra Bell, with the O-rings and the flat washers and the regular 5/16 bolt. I won't be using that again. It worked fine. I put a small amount of clear RTV on it when I put it together. Again, nothing leaked. I just think the gasket is much easier because otherwise you have to hold all these O-rings on there and get it down on the case without them falling out. So the O-rings with a flange bolt, I've done that too. That's actually better, I think, but I prefer the ATI gasket and the traditional TH400 pump washer with a flange bolt. So the valve body is just a Transmission Specialties 4009, I believe, internal solenoid. The one that's sold by Jeg sells it. Transmission Specialties sells it. Probably Summit sells it. I haven't looked, but it's functioning just fine. And it'll go right back on there for now. He was inquiring about a 1-2 first and second gear lead valve body, but Gonna stick with this for now. I'll have to ask what kind of oil he's using. It smells kind of fishy. Might be hydraulic oil, I don't know. But again, nice and clean. Let's continue to rip it apart. All right, I got all the guts pulled out of it. And this is gonna look like a staged video, but I swear it's not. When I built the transmission, I put 6 in the forward, 6 clutches in the direct, 4 in the intermediate. They're in the forward and direct, the Alto high energy greens. They are still just like new. There's nothing on the steels look like I just took them out of the package. No dirt, no slime, no nothing. No nothing, as they say. Same with the forwards, just like new. Intermediates, or waffle type, still Alto, high energy. So I'm impressed. I use 6, 6, and 4. I think it's a good combination. Some say it's overkill, but in this case, they still look like new. I'll give you a look inside the transmission. The rear band that I used was a Raybestos Kevlar, and you can still read all the writing on it. It's done no damage to the drum carrier, I should say. The only issue I had taking it apart was there is a button head screw right here to clear the solenoid that's very shallow, and I had to end up chiseling it out, and I'll have to replace it with something a little more hardy. You have to negotiate the case saver, spiral lock. You know, in a race transmission, there's a few more things you got to deal with. The pump looks brand new still. I will remove the outer stator bushing and put a new bushing and seal. Well, the bushing's like new. I think he's going to run the same converter. I'll put a new seal in it. I'll make another call on the bushing. It's only a couple bucks. Why not? Yeah, looking good so far. Here's a look inside the case. Still read the writing on the band. The bearing and shim still in place at the bottom. This is a transmission I actually built for myself, and I actually machined off the sealing ring groove for the dual feed. You don't have to do that, but again, I was doing it for myself, so why not? My poor 1972 Nova that I built 9 transmissions for, I still am in possession of the 9th one, but this was one of the 9, I forget which one. When I left my real job, started working out of the shop here. Originally, I worked on hot rods, and eventually I transitioned into transmissions, only pretty much, and some rear end work, but I don't take in whole vehicles anymore. And when I started this transition, I didn't have a lot of core transmissions. I'm not trying to rhyme, I promise. So even building this transmission out of spare parts with a nice case, it took longer than it would now. Now at least I have more parts in stock. It took a while for the buildup and a lot of investment just to have, you know, core transmissions and parts sitting around. And I'm always, even today, I'm always on the hunt to keep my stock of parts up, which is very difficult. You know, you find a good deal, or a reasonable price at least, on a part that you want to keep in stock, and next thing you know, it's not available. And the replacement is 25 times more than the one you were buying, and it's probably of less quality. That's the world we live in today. So, completely happy with this. This could have gone anyway. I mean, 100 runs is probably time for an overhaul most of the time, at least a good look at it. And this could have gone obviously a lot longer, and will. I'm not going to do anything except change a few seals, change the shafts, and reattach the bell housing so it doesn't leak, clean a few things. It's kind of a refreshing job not to have to strip a greasy old core, clean all the parts and paint them and come up with enough parts to put it together. This repair stuff, which the next couple I'm going to do, is a pleasant change. Even though it's the same stuff, it's different because it's different. So next week you might enjoy it. I got a ATI transmission out of a Copo. We're gonna put a trans brake in. So that transmission is also almost new as well. So that's that for today. People have been asking for some 4L80E content, and I think I have one of those I have to take a look at. So we'll see how that goes, but I can't wait to get my bench clean. It's my sanity. The shop itself is what it is, but I try to keep my bench clean because this is where everything happens. Even lunch, I wasn't even able to eat lunch. I ate it over there on a cardboard box. Enjoy your weekend. I'll talk to you next time, couple days.